Welcome. Um, Greetings of salams and peace to everyone here. We welcome everyone here to our monthly Divaan Ishq, poetic tavern where we heal, where we hold space for one another, and where we, inshallah, ascend and do some inner work. Today's topic will be Samsara, or suffering. And this is what we're going to be discussing, along with some other subtopics, all related to the same theme. And neither of us are experts or even there, nowhere close. We're, quite ignorant. I can speak for myself, but we have Louisa, fortunately, to save the day. And I'm going to pass it over. You're going to, do most of the talking, and I'll add a few snippets into it.
Yeah, I think you said the theme is, suffering, and none of us are experts. I think we are experts in that, to be honest. But yeah, I think the contrasting theme is maybe what is the human predicament, the release from that suffering, right? So that's, I guess, what is the question? How do we reach that? And I hope we're not promising any solutions, but maybe we can. Oh, now we're ending up in a little lecture hall here. Maybe we can just see what different points of views have been on why there is suffering and what the potential solution is, I guess. So, should I start with a poem?
Yes, I think that would just be a beautiful way to open up this space. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to read a poem by one of the most famous yogis in the West, Swami Vivekananda, who has been a great influence on basically disseminating yoga for Westerners. So he has a poem on sannyasa, which we could also discuss a bit more as of what that means. What is sannyasa? And this poem of his is called The Song of the Sannyasin. So a sannyasin is one who has taken sannyasa. I'm going to read a few stanzas. Let's see how many. There are 12 stanzas in this one. Wake up the note, the song that had its birth far off, where worldly taint could never reach. In mountain caves and glades of forest deep, whose calm no sigh for lust or wealth or fame could ever dare to break. Where rolled the stream of knowledge, truth, and bliss that follows both. Sing high that note, sannyasin bold. Say, Om Tat Sat Om. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold or darker, baser ore. Love, hate, good, bad, and all the dual throng. No, slave is slave, caressed or whipped, not free. For fetters, though of gold, are not less strong to bind. Then off with them, sannyasin bold, say, Om Tat Sat Om. Let darkness go, the will-o'-the-wisp that leads, with blinking light to pile more gloom on gloom. This thirst for life, forever quench, it drags from birth to death, and death to birth, the soul. He conquers all who conquers self. Know this and never yield, sannyasin bold. Say, Om Tat Sat Om. Who sows must reap, they say, and cause must bring the sure effect. Good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. But whoso wears a form must wear the chain. Too true, but far beyond both name and form, is Atman ever free. Know thou art that Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. They know not truth who dream such vacant dreams as father, mother, children, wife, and friend. The sexless self, whose father he, whose child, whose friend, whose foe is he, who is but one? The self is in all, none else exists, and thou art that Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. There is but one, the free, the knower, self, without a name, without a form or stain. In him is Maya dreaming all this dream. The witness, he appears as nature, soul. Know thou art that Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Where seekest thou that freedom, friend? This world nor that can give. In books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Then cease lament. Let go thy hold, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Say peace to all. From me no danger be to aught that lives. In those that dwell on high, in those that lowly creep, I am the self in all. All life both here and there do I renounce. All heavens and earths and hells, all hopes and fears, thus cut thy bonds, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Heed then no more how body lives or goes. Its task is done. Let karma float it down. Let one put garlands on, another kick this frame. Say not, no praise or blame can be where praiser praised and blamer blamed are one. Thus be thou calm, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Truth never comes where lust and fame and greed of gain reside. No man who thinks of woman as his bride can ever perfect be, nor he who owns the least of things, nor he whom anger chains, can ever pass through Maya's gates. So give these up, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Have thou no home? What home can hold thee, friend? The sky thy roof, the grass thy bed, and food. What chance may bring, well cooked or ill, judge not. No food or drink can taint that noble self which knows itself. Like rolling river free, thou ever be, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Few only know the truth, the rest will hate and laugh at thee, great one, but pay no heed. Go thou, the free, from place to place and help them out of darkness, Maya's veil. Without the fear of pain or search for pleasure, go beyond them both, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Thus, day by day, till karma's power spent, release the soul forever, no more birth, nor I, nor thou, nor God, nor man. The I has all become, the I is all and bliss. Know thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om.
Thank you for that. Just curious, what Om Tat Sat, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there were probably quite a few terms that if you're not familiar with the yogic or related terminology might be good to kind of go through. So Om Tat Sat is a mantra, and Om, I think, is not easy to translate, but that's the primordial sound according to yogic philosophy. And Tat Sat is basically, Sat is the root from the word for truth, and Tat is being. So Om Tat Sat basically means Om pure being, or Om, true being. So it's kind of, you could say, like a calling to remembrance and calling to realign what is your true reality, what is your true identity. Because what also this poem brought up was Maya's veils, and in this kind of philosophy there is an idea that this world as we see it right now is not the how should one say, the ultimate truth, but it's kind of a play on our senses and our faculties, and then we do think that we have a body, and we think we have a name, and we think we are this body and this mind and this person. So the Om Tat Sat kind of calls us to remember what we truly are. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what also this whole day's theme would be about, the remembrance.
Right.
Yeah, and I must say, I mean, remember that this all probably can't be directly bridged into terms that exist within Sufism, but I think the concepts are pretty similar when we go beyond the apparent. So the sannyasin that Swami Vivekananda is referring here to is someone who has taken sannyasa, and sannyasa was a kind of formalization of something that already existed and always has existed. There's always been people who have wanted to break free from society's norms and claims on how people should live their lives and what is deemed as important in life, i.e., marriage, work, wealth, status, all those kind of things. And those who feel there is something deeper that they need to seek. Now, I'm not going to take a stand on what's the right way to find truth, but there's always been these people. And I think in Sufism, maybe Qalandars would be the closest thing, as far as I've come to understand. So when we look at what was happening in India a few hundred years ago, there was like loads of these sadhus going around, and generally they would be begging and just finding their day-to-day life, not thinking about how to do it, but just they had their begging bowl and they would go around, and then in exchange they would maybe give some teachings of wisdom to those who came with offerings. But this was not something that families maybe wanted their children to do. And along came a guy called Shankara, or Shankaracharya. He became later when he was recognized as an acharya. And he basically wanted to renounce already as a very young teenager. And the story goes that he went through a lot of trouble, especially with his mom, because his mom said no. And he needed his mom's permission because he literally wanted to kind of die before he died. That was his wish. And long story short, he convinced his mom in the end, and she gave him her blessing. So he did renounce, and he founded a movement that was the beginning of the Sannyasin movement, because he said, when we have this kind of an institutionalized system that gives a protection to those who want to do this, and then maybe the families will recognize that this is an honorable thing, and they will not try to hinder their children to go this path. Because previously maybe it was like when you'd live a full life and you became 80, 90, then you would give away all your things and you'd say, goodbye, I've done my part. Now I'm going to wander off. But he said anyone should be able to do that who wants to. So he founded the Sannyasin order, which nowadays is a spiritual order that passes on this kind of initiation, where you basically say you give away everything on every level, material to spiritual. And then your sole aim becomes to basically self-realize. So that is the kind of essence of what the sannyasa is. Then there's a lot of branches of different orders and things, just like I'm sure within the Sufi orders, there's so many different specializations. And then some swamis, for example, as they're called, they can become they're more into the scholarly kind of literature, culture, education. Others are more other kind of things. So, but that's very shortly what the sannyasin system is. A renunciate.
Yeah, I mean, within the Sufis too, right? You have those the Zahids, those who renounce and choose that path of renunciation, and then you have the true wanderers who literally just like the sadhus. I'd say that's the closest parallel, and they also too are seen or depicted with the begging bowl. So that's quite interesting. You have the earliest examples of those who renounced, and that was in the females, Rabia till Adawiya. What we're going to try to do in this session is we're going to try to create parallels, and essentially, based on the teachings of Maulana Rumi, sorrow, as that is our main theme, is connected to the eternal yearning, the yearning for home, and being separated from home. Then you have the theme of the name, you have the sorrow, and you have the longing, and the everything else that creates duality. And that becomes a means of separation. So I'd like to read a small poem here by Hafiz. This constant yearning. We are like lutes, once held by God. Being away from his holy, warm body fully explains this constant yearning. That is basically in a nutshell. We're going to read a somewhat formal definition here of, shall we start off with samsara?
Sure.
Louisa? Samsara is the concept of the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth found in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. It represents the ongoing process of existence where individuals are born into different forms based on their past actions and karma. Hinduism sees it as a part of reincarnation. Buddhism views it as a state of suffering to be overcome, and Jainism emphasizes liberation through spiritual purification. The aim in all three religions is to break free from the cycle and attain enlightenment. What would you like to say on that before we go into a parallel?
Before we go into a parallel, I don't know, maybe I'm already going into a parallel, because all I wanted to say is I think there is this general maybe resistance in those who don't acknowledge reincarnation as an actual physical thing. And I'm not here either going to take a stance on whether or not the soul travels, but what I've always found with the process of rebirth and death, and I know we've been talking about this also in the previous Divaan Ishqs, is there's equally that rebirth and death during even just a moment or a day. And that definitely is a cause of suffering when we kind of cling to that. And I think we even talked about that a bit more when we talked about death. I think we had that one session when we talked about death, and I remember we discussed that. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on that. And I think in the sort of Sufic lens, the idea of fana, right, death or annihilation, creates a death and then therefore a rebirth intrinsically. And that's something to consider. And it's not necessarily after, like the idea of, you know, once you've left this world, it's a constant sort of theme that comes into the day-to-day to die before you die. And that's like the goal of the traveler, all the time to die. And then with every death, there's a rebirth, and there's a shedding, and there's an ascension of the soul in the process. I think that there's a lot of similarities in that concept. There's also the emphasis of divine union in the Sufi path, right? And that comes through probably a lot of the sub-themes that we're going to be looking at, like purification, release, annihilation, sorrow, and all the other items that we're going to be talking about. But technically, I think we have a lot of similarities in terms of, these concepts.
And there's a great deal of differences in how, the terminology, but also maybe the emphasis. And for example, even within Buddhism itself, the little experience I have on like practical Buddhism, there's some more astringent branches which have a big emphasis on the suffering aspect, and there's this kind of I don't know if gloomy atmosphere or dry atmosphere or dark atmosphere, but then there's equally, like, there's a spectrum always within those as well. And now I forgot completely where I was going with this. But feel free to take it anywhere from here.
Well, I mean, I think from my limited sort of understanding, you're basically saying that there is a strong emphasis on non-attachment, because that is a root cause to suffering, attachment. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And therefore, the practices associated with the non-attachment can go obviously in whatever spectrum. But generally speaking, I think there's so many sort of percepts on attachment, even in Sufism, because there is a very strong emphasis on attachment in love, right? And different, obviously the goal is divine love, but you're actually transcending the different grades of love. So I don't know, like, not sure how the traditions go, but the attachment basically has created an entire culture of ecstatic tradition. And it's not a full renunciation of the world, because you have the tradition of creating these beautiful gardens and beautification and architecture, and it's very worldly in that sense, but it's also very divinely, because these, at least, we know from the Golden Age, they were actually trying to not mirror, but like bring forth that heavenly vision into the earthly realm. And so there is a time when you are a pilgrim and you're asked to wear, let's say, the cloth, right? The same thing like you would find in Buddhist, but it's not a permanent state. So the cloth has to be removed. So it's not, I don't think we have a full zahid or a full emphasis on a full renunciation. Detachment, yes, but renunciation, no, because we're still in this world. But of course, the middle path makes sense in everything. As Buddha himself said, between the two polarities is the middle path.
And I think that's a concept also known throughout the, all the religions, that it's not in the extremes you find truth. It's always that very, very narrow road in the middle. And of course, even though there are people who externally may, for example, the sannyasins, there's a story about how their robes came to be what they are. Many of them wear like these saffron robes, which you probably also have seen on the Buddhist monks, like these dhotis. And there's one story at least where there's two guys who are walking by an execution site, and they're seeing this one man who's been sitting imprisoned, and he's going to go now to get executed, and he's wearing this orange garb. And when they watch him, they see that he, having like these mere minutes left to live, he's so present, he's so fully aware, that they say, let's remember this, let's always live as if we're this close to dying. And that's why they put on this visible kind of reminder. But obviously, yes, I mean, you can wear an orange garb, you can shave your hair, you can give away all your stuff and still be extremely attached to things or to emotions or to your life. And then you can live within the world, running a business, having a car, having family, having friends, all these kind of things, and be still not in the world. So like you said, yes, I think the detachment is at the root of all of these.
If anybody has any input on that, feel free to, comment, or this is a discussion equally, not a whiteboard situation. So.
I did read a book one time of Moroccans. I forgot the name. It was letters of Moroccan person from before, but they would renounce. They would say it's better to renounce and not be held accountable for anything, and that they even didn't work. They did call it, I think they call it tajreed, and they didn't work so that they don't be tested with the desires. So what do you think that, because I noticed with myself, when I don't have, I am in a different spiritual state than when I do have, but yet I need to have because I need to be some sort of like stable in the necessities.
Having what?
baby.
A job.
Oh, that's your showcase? Okay, come
Because
here.
they didn't even work. They denounced working. They didn't work. They even told us, they even emphasized not to work.
Right. Basically. So I wouldn't say it's a path that works for everyone. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is the way. It's so subjective and it's so varied, and it works equally and it doesn't work equally. It just depends if you're called to that path. I know that, for example, many Sufi orders, if you were to see them, you would actually think that they emphasize the world, or you'll see all the bling bling paraphernalia, very luxurious living. But the question is, they're being trained on the actual attachment to those things. So it's hard to say who's who and what's what, because we don't really know anyone's reality. And the faqir could be the one who's, desiring
okay, I just
the
got
world
pulled over.
than...
Can you guys please make dua for me? I'm so sorry. Please make dua for me because I just got pulled over.
Detachment.
Oh, okay.
Whatever outcome.
Oh my gosh. Whatever outcome. Okay, Allahu Akbar. Okay, I'm gonna go.
We'll pitch in if there's a big fee. Inshallah. Don't worry, you're covered.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna just turn off.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's you really can't say what is and what isn't, or what. Yeah, you just don't know.
I think I remember one thing about work, that there's this big emphasis on work, at least in the tradition I was trained in. And although there is this kind of karmic bind to work also, and to the actions you do, there's a way to perform actions and perform work where you do it, but you don't take the you don't claim the fruits of your actions, but rather anything you do, whether good or bad results, you kind of give that away. And I think in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is talking to Arjuna, his disciple, he's giving kind of an advice and saying that not even in every generation there is one person who can do non-action. Like, that is so difficult, and that is not something he recommends, because it's like the human nature is working better when there is action. So rather do action and renounce the action rather than be inactive, because that could lead to severe issues if you're not on that level yet where you can actually be inactive. And for myself,
Yeah.
I find that true.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of like a karmic curse, because you have these gifts and you're gifted with certain things and you have a calling, and if you choose to not do anything about it, we don't know what that would lead to. Because I know in the Sufi sort of world, there are individuals who prematurely, and it's not an emphasized thing to not do and just sit around, right? Just resort to mountains and, just do your beads there. The work is looked upon as worship. It's a form of ibadah. It's a virtue to work, to take care of yourselves, to take care of yourself and others. There's no emphasis that even if you do, therefore you're worldly, give everything away. There is a balance in what is charity, rights for yourself, rights for others. So there's a deep there's a lot of layering within even the to-dos. When you're earning, you have your zakat, you have your charity, and then you have to also give to your family. For example, in the Hajj, which is right now, we're in the season of the pilgrim, and all these lessons that we're going to be talking about, or we're going to try to talk about, even though I don't practice anything myself. That's basically the journey, and those are the lessons, the deeper lessons of the Hajj, the lesser Umrah or the lesser pilgrimage. All these are taught that really you're a wayfarer. And I was trying to make a point and I forgot now. Just go on, fill in the blanks, and then I'll see if I can come back to it.
How did it go, Noor? He's muted. Maybe, yeah.
It's muted. We're gonna,
You can tell us, yeah, later.
when you come back to Earth, we'll hear.
Did we have other terms that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I think so. I think we had, release, right? Release from the samsara, the cycle of birth and death and rebirth. The renunciation, sannyasa, right? What else did we talked about? What else was there?
We had the dharma.
Yeah, we had the dharma.
And I think we all touched upon that also in some other session.
Oh, right, we did.
Kind
We
of
did do that.
once one's purpose or the duty one has in this life, or the assigned tasks, could also be on a more kind of on a higher plane than just the physical work. What is one's calling in this life?
Exactly. I want to just share a few quotations from the Upanishads and the Quran equally on a few of the concepts that we just spoke about. So the first would be samsara. As long as a man desires the things of this world, he falls into confusion and is born again and again in the material forms of existence. That's from the Upanishad. And then here from the Quran, we have every soul will taste death, and we test you with evil and with good as a trial, and to us you will be returned. On the subject of sannyasa, renunciation is not the giving up of things, but the acceptance that they go of themselves. All action ceases when one knows the Atman as oneself. That's from the Upanishad.
And the Atman is the higher self.
Right. Would that be the equivalent to the soul? Because it's the eternal aspect of oneself. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, again, people then sometimes debate what's the difference between soul and spirit, but yeah, I think you could say that's the soul.
Renunciation in the Quran, among many other quotations, here's one. And those who do not testify to falsehood, and when they pass near ill speech, they pass by with dignity.
So that echoes also what I think the poem from Swami Vivekananda said: whether they praise you or they mock you, be neutral. Don't react.
There's also,
yeah.
sorry, yeah.
No,
there's also in the spiritual sciences, it's not recommended to overly praise someone. I mean, at least to their face. There's something on the metaphysical sort of, or alchemical aspect of that. And I'm not going to talk about that because I don't really practice that. For dharma, we have from the Upanishad, you are what you deep driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. And dharma, a quote of that nearest to the Quran is, indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct and giving to relatives and forbids immorality and bad conduct and oppression. He admonishes you that perhaps you will be reminded. And I'll stop right there. We didn't cover Maya and Moksha, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, these are just like, oh, not even drops, but.
So Maya could be considered, she could see, as I already referred, she could be considered a goddess for those who use that kind of conceptualization of reality into energies or various manifestations. Maya would be that part of the existence which is manifest, so the world that we live in, for example, and illusory of nature, and not evil, not bad, but simply deceiving. And even there's a concept of lila in the yogic way of thought, which is a word for divine play. So there is this idea that even the illusion, even the deception is only existing because divine will wants to experience life in that way, wants to kind of play all these games of suffering, joy, love, loss, death, birth, all of these things. It's like a grand play. So Maya could be seen as that force that manifests this kind of illusion. And was it moksha you said?
Yeah, but in terms of illusion, is everything considered illusion except for that what is real? Because we have that concept as well.
I mean, there's different, I think, schools of thought there. There's the dualistic and non-dualistic thoughts. I don't know if we want to philosophize too much on those, but I think the tantrics say that there's nothing that's separate from anything else. So in that way, Maya is as much truth as anything else.
And since our childhood, I've been listening to this thing. They say sab maya hai, all is illusion. You know, they say sab maya hai, all is illusion. So it is sometimes taken as a joke, and it is sometimes taken as, yeah, it's taken as a joke or to tell someone and not to take things seriously.
I think it's probably serving as a great reminder, in the same way that, whatever happens to us, kind of keep a neutral stance to that. I know Shankaracharya, this founder of the Sannyasin order, he had this parable of, just like when you see a rope hanging in the dark, you might mistake it for a snake. Just in the same way, you believe this body, this, what should you call it, body-mind complex to be I. So yeah, if you keep reminding yourself that all is illusion, maybe you have an easier time to see through also when this I is suffering a lot, and when you kind of get lost into that story that you're currently living. Just like when you're watching a movie and you get so sucked into the plot that you start crying when there's something happening. In the same way, your own life, is the greatest illusion movie that you're believing right now.
I'm actually going through this phase. I am in love with this season, Ashes of Love. And they have created these two characters of Shu Feng and Jinmi. And the character of the guy, I just started watching this year, or probably in December, that I got in love with that guy. And then I was like, no, now I'm attached, I have to detach myself. And now again, like this week, like 4 days ago, I started watching it again because I was like, I want to find out, do they meet each other or not? And then, again, I'm like, oh my God. Now I like the girl as well, and I like the guy as well. But this is based on this Buddhist concept. It's a Chinese season, and they're talking about destiny. It's about karma. and the doom of love, and how the girl break the spell by sacrificing it, so that doom is transmuted and they get the chance to reunite. And then there's a lot of reincarnation going on. So many concept from Buddhism. It was just like, if I watch again, there will be so many lessons to relearn. It looks funny sometimes because they are dying and there's rebirth, but they're all, if you see the dots on continuum, and then they're just improving, just like in Dragon Ball Z, if you've watched that. So yeah, I think we should, if you guys have time, you can watch. But I did not have time. I watched it so that, I can feel better, and I did, because I was getting so consumed and all those concepts, and then again my infatuation with that love story. And now I think I have to now go back and detach myself, but I purposely like went back to it. So yeah.
Hmm. Nice, Madiha. From the Upanishad, we have the following in regards to Maya. Lead me from the unreal to the real. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. The life of this world is only the enjoyment of deception. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. That's from the Quran. We also have the verse where it says everything is fading except for the face of God, symbolically, meaning that there is nothing but the real. But again, it's, yeah. Transitioning into moksha.
Yeah, release or liberation. But I don't know what to say on that.
Because you haven't been released.
Yeah. Now we have Noor with us.
And Noor has been released. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so I guess if I want to tie it into the illusion, the attachment, and I guess there's fear, right? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So basically, that officer really had the right to take the car and probably throw me in jail. I can't say because this is a recording, but he did have it. And so I've been, since I got this car, I've been trying not to get pulled over. I've been trying to be like a grandma. So the reason he pulled me over was something like simple or like whatever, like it just, suspicion hit him. So then when you guys said detach from outcome, it's like, you know what, we're willing to go to jail. If we gotta go to jail, wherever we gotta go. so I was like, are you gonna have me stranded or in jail? Khalas, we going out. I'm meant to go, right? And then, I did Medad Ya Sayyidi, I did jazz bell. But then he was really, I like just got the right person at the right time. And he was just very like, oh, you don't know. And I was like, no, I don't know nothing. So, and then he just like innocently, I'm sorry, just but he did. He innocently, by the grace, he innocently like was like, okay, well, since you don't know, I'm just gonna give you a warning. And what's it called? But please like fix that problem. I'm like, okay, and I just was like, wow, like the pressure, the illusion of like what could happen, and just the attachment of like what could happen, like, like what was it gonna really hurt me? Like how much, and then how much was it gonna hurt me? But also a reminder that you can ask for saving grace. You know, you can ask to be saved. Saving grace might just come down and save you. Ya gharatullah. And so then after I realized that I wasn't in danger, I was like, relax. You saw me in the jokes. I was laughing. You know, I was like, oh, whew. No, no. And then now it's like release, like I do feel like I overcame something a little bit, but I also feel, and then you guys got it recorded. Oh my God. And then it's recorded. However, alhamdulillah, now I'm in like relief, you know, and
She's in nirvana.
I wish, but not there.
Seems like it.
Oh yes. Well, so that's the light spirit. Then the spirit becomes light, you know, and now I feel like looking forward to, I'm more aware now of something I gotta do, and then I'm looking forward to what's to come. So I think I'm just relating that to like the process of the attachment and then getting to like detachment. Yeah, so you guys saw it live.
Right. You know what we didn't discuss? Because, you know, for the longest time, we've been talking about this GE. And then when I started becoming more consciously attuned to the terminology that we're speaking about today, I'm like, this is something I've been wanting to do since I was a kid, sannyasa. Because I remember I would like imagine, you know, just like having a tent and being able to live anywhere because I had a tent. I was like, oh, I have a house, and who would stop me, right? So this constant sort of wanting to be absolved of the worldly responsibilities or the things that really weigh you down, or that you feel that, you know, there's an obligation. It's almost like it's a very overt, I can't even hide it. It's like known that, you know, she's always talking about this thing. And so it's actually, I mean, it's something to embrace, and it's something possibly to look into and see that, because I think I'm sure it's something that's inherent with everyone, right?
Yeah,
Whether it
even
happens
know,
or not, like
in
isn't that
your
what
Indian heritage, there's like even the system of ashramas, different
your
stages of
Indian
life.
heritage too? Yeah.
And where you start with, you know, all the stuff of childhood, adolescence, studying, householding. Then, you know, at some point when your kids are grown, you move into the forest and dwell there. And then in the end, you're like, even that is done. And then you literally give everything away, and no one is to expect anything of you anymore. And I haven't seen that personally, but my teacher told that he was once invited to a party of this old man who had decided it was time for him to enter that ashrama, that stage of life. And he basically called everyone, like his whole big family, into a massive party with good food and stuff. And then he started like handing out things, his bike, his books, his clothes. And in the end, he even took off, you know, the clothes he was wearing. And then they gifted him a dhoti and a wandering stick and a begging bowl. And then at the end of the party, he said his salams and goodbyes, and then he walked out the door, and no one expected to ever see him again. That is a traditional kind of way of living. So I think, yeah, inherent or not, like I'm sure there's that kind of desire within people who have a very a mindset that abhors kind of the material clinginess or being very attached to these things.
Yeah, but there was a very strong sentiment against the whole begging culture, even in the Sufis. So that's why, for example, I know for sure in the Naqshbandi order centuries, it was necessary for every disciple or every seeker to seek a trade or an occupation. And so they had these guilds. And so you would, you know, learn calligraphy or, you know, learn how to work with iron and create art or whatever it was, so that you are not a burden upon anyone, and you are self-sufficient in the sense that even if it's, you know, bread and water or dates and water, but you can do that for yourself because that's considered worship to help yourself. So yeah, so that's just something that came up. That
I think I do think
Yeah.
technically, I mean, of course, I'm not saying there aren't sadhus who go around begging and don't do anything.
Okay.
But I think traditionally, just like with the Buddhist monks, there is that kind of expectation of something in return, although it's not maybe stated clearly. Like it is expected that since you don't have the obligations of a householder, for example, to farm your land or cattle or take care of, you know, your family and things like that, then your task in society is to provide spiritual guidance and nourishment for the people who feed you. You know, someone comes and gives you rice, and then they expect your blessings, or they expect your lessons, or they're, you know, they're asking for advice on some matter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think, of course, there's so many ways to do it, and I'm sure there's so many hidden renunciates for living very, you know, seemingly entangled in the world.
Oh, that's very valid. Very valid.
We also have this opposite kind of traditions, like that now it's more like in old age to provide a better, comfortable living for parents. And they also say that the worship in young age is more um, benefit. It's more important. Like there's more stress on the youth to come to God, because when you don't have power, enough strength in your body, you know, am I right? But yes, so there is more emphasis for the upon the youth to cultivate or harness their um, zahid, like zuhud or zahid, zuhud,
Yeah.
yeah, to cultivate that in young age, and then that becomes easier in old age. And also this we have the story of Muhammad Ali as well, the boxer. So you see that how he strived all his youth, and at the end of his age, when he got that disease, I can't remember the name, but he was not able to speak much and move much. There was this scholar who interpreted as that he says that by the time I'm in my old age, like he always talk a lot about the importance of time, that I have this amount of time and I want to spend it doing this thing, so that in the old age I can spend time with God. So they say that that disease was his prayer coming true, that he got so intimate with God that he was only left with God in that silence and in that immobility. It was him and God. So I just felt like sharing that.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
That reminds me a bit of, I know there's some monastic tradition where when you join as a young person, you get like your own little cell with I mean it's kind of aesthetic, but you have a, you know, good mattress, and you have like maybe your own TV and something like that. And then the longer you stay and the older you get, the more they start taking away. So they take away your TV, and then in the end you're kind of sleeping on a thin bamboo thing on the floor. And I mean, I think to some degree maybe that resonates with the fact that it's, you know, when you're young, it's maybe it requires a bit more effort. If you're very sort of, you're vital, you have a lot of unexpressed desire towards doing a lot of things in life. And then the older you get, maybe your body even is kind of already hinting at the detachment you'll have to gradually start having towards life, because you know your life is nearing the end. that was just something that kind of came to mind from that method.
And also there's also one suhba of Maulana Sheikh Nazim, and he says that when you have kids and they're small, don't listen to everything they say, because you are teaching them materialism. I'm just paraphrasing it. So he said that from very young age there should be a certain balance of what you're giving and of not giving. So I found that when I read it, I found it very strict, but this it really shows that we don't want them to learn materialism. So if it is done consciously, we're saying do that kind of parenting consciously.
Yeah, thanks for the advice. Yeah, no, seriously, I think it's interesting also in that when we become more wealthy as kind of as compared maybe to our ancestors in terms of living standards, then these questions do become trickier, because maybe there has been a sort of a natural balance. If you don't have an abundance of resources, that's just, you can't question whether or not you can have candy every day, or whether or not you can watch 5 episodes of that series, because that's been kind of protected or shielded from you if you don't have that excess. And now it has to be a conscious renunciation that, okay, I can, peace, Noor, that I can do this, but I choose not to. So that is maybe even a bigger test.
Now I'm reminded of one incident from my childhood, and it was like there was this family we visited, and they were very wealthy, and as kids we were doing prayers, and so I asked that guy who was younger than me that why do you just get up so fast, right? So that I have America, you have to ask for things to pray, and he said I have everything. So I was like, now it resonates. And then you have this ayat in Surat Kahf, and there's this parable of when Hazrat Musa alayhi salam was accompanying Hazrat Sayyidina Khizr alayhi salam, and he just tears apart the boat of a man. And Prophet Musa alayhi salam says, why did you tear off these old people's boat? And some of the scholars have interpreted as that, God, it's like so that in the Quran they're saying that so that the king won't hurt him by ripping, because the king was taking away all the good boats, so he ripped it so that the king won't take it away. And the other side was that, and God just ripped it so that they're constantly praying to God to keep them safe, and that this boats keep running, so and keeping them close to God. So that was also another interpretation. So.
That's interesting. I remember on a previous one of our divans, I think it was Madiha or somebody, and they said that when they came face to face with somebody on the street, that was like the closest sort of experience to the divine, like, and the thing is that all these ideas are also very like utopian, like it's like great, I'd love to, get my backpack and just say, oh, wow, I have my, personal sort of calling, and, guys, I've done the best I can. I'd like, I love you guys, but, leave me alone. That's ideal. But this is not simple as the ideas kind of look very delicious, right? And, there are people who have been released, and they have basically been able to do, and live this way. I personally do know of people, and whether or not that happens, waiting around for that happening, we might miss the moment. So, for example, like I remember when I was in India, one of my most favorite household servants she lived in the adjacent place that was given to her, next to the house. But you know what, for her, she told me her story, and she said, when I was young, my parents died, and all my brothers and sisters, they got married and went off in their own place. But I had this one sister, and she had some mental, mental issues and dysfunctions and whatnot. So she said, I opted, like there was no place for her to go for the sister. So she said, I had many opportunities to, maybe marry and move on. But because of this sister whom I love so dearly, I felt like I can't do that. And her youth and everything, even though she still looks super young, but like, that window of time that she ideally would have considered it, because we're talking about India here. We're not talking about North America, where you're finding your beloved at 80, right? So it's, it's probably not very culturally conducive to do that there. So that window of time, so she gives up everything for this sister. She's working, and then she, money that she makes, it goes towards the medication and the small little place that she has. And can she do the whole thing, or is she living with all these attributes or qualities? She's embodying all these desirable sort of ways of being, like right now, due to her life situation. So we could also transmute or change our lens to say, can we not right now be in the moment of death, or I don't know, like all the stuff that we talked about, right? Can we not get to that stage, right? Or you don't really think about it that way, but I'm just saying that you can actually right now take a conscious decision to tread upon this path of enlightenment, that these sort of processes or these sort of ways of being lead to enlightenment. So you can actually achieve that now, through a conscious sort of spiritual wayfaring. Like, for example, you have, I think, the 8 principles, right? Or the 11 principles. One of them, I haven't memorized them like you, Mehtab, but one of them is, among the crowd, be in the remembrance of the one. You're among the people, like you were at a party yesterday, Louisa, right? Surrounded by people and activities and all of that, but your inner state could be in that full oneness. So it's what we embody and try to do right now that could just, literally bring us to these desirable sort of places that we spiritually, and like all these different philosophies that we romanticize about, we can actually be them, right? It doesn't have to be, I'm waiting for that day, So yeah, so there's just something that I wanted to share. We can go into the poems or the penning right now, and this way we don't have to take too long. We're going to do a reading, we're going to do a penning, and then we can close off the today's session. So this is a poem from Hafiz. It is called Some of the Planets Are Hosting. The ear becomes alert when music says, I am over here. The eye goes on duty, becomes viable when beauty whistles and points to her dress on the ground. God has sent out 10,000 messengers announcing a great bash tonight. Some of the planets are hosting, where the lead singer is God himself. But most of those couriers have become drunk, got waylaid, disoriented to the hilt with such exalted news, and can no longer remember the time and place. What does that have to do with you? Plenty. Hafiz will fill you in later if need be. So he seems to have disappeared from the scene. He's gone to join the party. So let us.
Almost, can you read again?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, if I haven't lost the page somewhere around here, 1 minute. Okay, I'll read it again. I already see like some themes here from what we discussed. Very impromptu, this one. Some of the planets are hosting. This is the title. The ear becomes alert when music says, I'm over here. The eye goes on duty, becomes viable when beauty whistles and points to her dress on the ground. God has sent out 10,000 messengers announcing a great bash tonight some of the planets are hosting, where the lead singer is God himself. But most of those couriers have become drunk, got waylaid, disoriented to the hilt with such exalted news, and can no longer remember the time and place. What does that have to do with you? Plenty. Hafiz will fill you in later if need be. So let us do our customary penning for, say, another 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then we will do our sharing, inshallah. Okay, so if we're ready, then anybody would like to unmute themselves and share?
Do you want to start?
Is there anybody else? So, Mariam, do you have anything ready?
Not yet.
Okay, don't worry. Don't worry. Louisa, do you have anything?
I can try. I didn't really finish it, but I might not finish it regardless.
Don't be attached.
I'm not. The cry of a baby is agony of separation. The goodness of the milk, essence of love. Would not a mother respond? Renunciation from duty would not provide freedom regardless. But fulfilling the task laid out and feeding actions with intention, turning haphazard desire into sharpened excellence. That is it.
Bravo. Martha? Are we pressurizing you into something you're not ready to?
Ready.
All right.
Okay. If I shed a tear or two, what good would I do? If I miss a call or two, how far and distant would this sun go? If this will is not ignited, this will not fill any void. There is an inner conflict or inner confine. Talk to your inner child and find what cloud it is that roars but doesn't shed.
You want to read that again, please? And you know, there's a fan. Is there a fan going on in
I'll
the
turn it
background?
off. Hold on, I'll turn it off.
Please, sounds like an ocean.
Okay. If I shed a tear or two, what was it too noisy? The fan?
No, it's
Okay.
all good.
Okay. If I shed a tear or two, what good would that do? If I miss a call or two, how far and distant would this sun go? If this will is not ignited, this will not fill any void. There is an inner conflict or confine. Talk to your inner child. Find what cloud it is that roars but doesn't shed.
Thank you. Mariam?
Yes,
Would you like to? Yeah.
sure.
So,
I was just thinking about the saying of Hassan Basri rahmallah alayh. So based on that, I've written this. I tell myself, be sure that I choose to love, to prove time and again, to be accepted in the court of lovers, heart emptied of anything else. If I'm not true, I will be a fool who thinks of himself to be lucky for never being punished when the punishment can be losing the joy of prayer itself.
so this was inspired through Hassan Basri.
Yeah, I read this saying somewhere that the man came to Hassan Basri rahmallah and he said that Allah never punishes me because he just said that Allah never punishes me. And he said, how is that possible? It can be that if you are praying but you are not enjoying it, or you are deprived of that enjoyment of the prayer itself, or when you ask for something and that joy is taken away from you, that itself is a punishment for anybody who is on the path, or being that Allah hates obedience from certain people. So I was just thinking that it's easy to aim for, like ascension, you would say, or anything, but it's actually one has to be so true to oneself, and it's really not easy. That consistency of being true to yourself, it can actually change everything. The moment you slip into duality, everything is finished.
So true. There's so much illusion in the concepts and the desiring, because the desire to,
Yeah, it is what
come
that's
into
what I was
different
thinking.
states, that itself is an illusion.
Yeah, like when you want to talk about it, there's like unlimited talk, but actually things are really very simple, maybe. And it's just the hard work of a person. The moment you slip into duality, the game is over. It's like really one has to be so true to oneself. Like what do you really want, like you were also saying about the praises. One should not praise other people on their face, but you should not even praise yourself, because it's so easy to be fooled by your own ego sometimes. Sometimes
So
you'll not
true.
know it. You won't even know.
Yeah.
And what if somebody thinks that really that they are doing the right thing, and all their life they were so confident about it, but one day the reality just shatters what they have done all their life? What about that? I was thinking, like, a person can totally go into trauma.
That's Nightmare on Elm Street right there.
Yes, it's so possible. Like, I don't know. What do you do about that? Like, 'cause
You can't do nothing. You're already gray-haired by then. You can't even do anything. What are you going to do? You can do something, but
So,
I guess it's the awareness.
so what basically is the criteria to, give up the world or to detach yourself? Which
I think you
stands
need to ask the kids.
Yes.
You have the in-home mentors because they're so
Yeah.
pure, You
Because
probably
the truth will be the same no matter what religion people choose to follow. Deep down inside, everybody's heart will say the same thing.
So true. 100%.
So I was wondering, what
Allah
would be a
save
clear
us.
answer? I mean, I got so scared when I heard this saying of him, Hassan al-Basri, that, you can be the one who is praying. You can be the one who is in that court of people, the chosen one. But in reality, you can be deprived of that love in your entire actions. Allah knows who is who.
So true. And that itself is Maya, right? because we can easily be fooled or fool ourselves with our
Yeah, that's
doings,
why.
or be fooled by sort of these
That's why we need a guide. Sometimes you don't really see yourself. Sometimes it's not possible.
yeah, it's so true. So many layers of unknown. What is reality? What isn't?
I'm so sorry, my kids are interrupting.
It's okay.
It was a wonderful meeting, like a lot to think, really. It made my brain work a lot.
So yeah, I guess there's a lot of things to reflect upon. I personally did not write a poem this time because I really didn't have anything to write about. But I have a previous one yeah, so I had written this some time back, and I'd like to share it because I felt it was sort of in theme with today's topic. I've broken the law a million times. I've broken the law a million times and found it all in you. All because of you. From monotheist to polytheist, I now worship you. I renounced my creed and my false beliefs, all because of you. Holy scripture litany, blasphemy, apostasy. Difference I know not between the alleged two. I swear to you, no right, no wrong, all because of you. Lines are blurred, veils have dropped, masks forgot. I dare not utter what you taught. Divine love is what I sought. I've broken the law a million times in my love for you. In every speck, in every grain, I only sought you. I've strayed afar in search for you. You do know this is true. I've wrecked myself, brought shame to thy name, as love for you is my sole aim. Lost in the truth of words, from monotheists to polytheists. Not one but many, not many but one. I, through you, am brought back to the eternal dot of indivisible reality which fails to be experienced, except through worshiping not many but one, hence you, hence one. Please breathe your holy breath into my soul so I may chant and scribe you most beautifully. Please open my chest, cleanse my heart with the drop of your sweet saliva. Please gaze upon these blind eyes so that I may see between consciousness and unconsciousness. I lay upon plush red rugs, these eyes fixed upon canopies high. Please engrave my heart with your name. Please bring to life this writer's soul by your very glance. I desire your blessed face. I ache for your grace. Please grant me a sip of your splendid wine. Please make me thine. Please fill my ears in your renditions, your praise. Please drown me into oceans of eternal trance. I close my eyes beneath this canopy, pretending to be asleep, in hope that while these eyes are momentarily closed, you would appear, or your shadowless being, or your perfumed presence, or your melodious voice, or a glimpse of your modest smile, or a peek of your seal through linen garb, or the strand of your blessed curls, or your luminous sandaled feet pressing upon the plush red rug nearing me. I would steal a glance with pretentious sleep, bedazzled by thee in any form. On what basis, dare I ask? Of such grandiose requests, no such reason, no reason but for possible salvation by service to thee and your progeny, when me, myself, and I won't do, when all means nothing but you. If this breeze of love carries your breath, suffice it is to breathe the wind. In my alleged remembrance of you, I'll inhale till my breath fills with thee. If silence beneath the canopy permits privy to thee, gently inhaling and exhaling you, longing you in any form necessary, then let it be. Let me be. Please unveil thee. If grasping this frozen pen, whilst I lay in your court's shade, seizes my distraction, so to focus on thee, like a clay deity, I'll remain so. Till ink turns dry, until your permission for true submission, if my absence from home causes suspicion, I would tell the inhabitants, only you I seek, fear not. You and your beloveds are home for me, I choose you at all costs. In lieu of nearness to thee, in lieu of kith and kin, all family, if my eyelids close for many hours, akin to a fainting spell, and water springs of Mecca's Becca fail to avail, the one who lays on plush red rugs when time and matter exist not, if the sun and moon fail to be seen, I choose to lay still further until signs appear on the horizon. The time is nigh, Ya Aba Zahra, my longing for you here. My heart sighs, my tears run dry. I have no fear, restless I lie, seeking a message from you, a moth or a messenger, a leaf or talebearer, anything would do. Anything would do, anything from you. My biggest secret, now this is where we're getting into the theme, not all this other stuff, because it could all be a lie. It's easy to write. Now I'm just going to go into this part. Yeah, my biggest secret, to run away, the great escape, to lands afar, mountains and caves, St. Catherine's and Konya, your wish, my command. The awaited signs have come. I whirl under the sun, chanting, come, come. I now prepare to call upon souls from all corners towards the one. For Fatima's progeny, for Isa and Mehdi, I would eat dried berries and bitter grass. I want to be free from a responsibility to all but love, to be set free, in full dedication to none but thee. If this fatal stillness calls forth stars to align, my throat runs dry, my cough breaks silence, I arise to pen what I know not. I only pen what you taught, with no will of I or mine, then please take me, a mere guest, an imperfect slave, at your blessed grave. If wind no more, my limbs heat sore, I'll remain on this plush red rug as a passenger on a stormy ship, sheltered by Safinatun Najat, Ya Mehdi. I want love as the cause of my death sentence, my final breath. Please accept my heart's wish. What do I care then of pain or pleasure if my body is slain, if death our destiny, of loving you my only aim when I'm no more, then pain is a lie. I'd rather die than to live a lie. Please set me free in love's way. O beloved of the most beloved, O beloved of the Most High, I've broken the law 1,000,000 times in my love for you. Every speck in every grain, I only sought you. I've strayed afar in search for you. You do know this is true. I wrecked myself, brought shame to your name. As love for you is my sole aim, if the scorching sun is not the proof of this burning desire for you, then what is? And that's the end. I don't know why I chose such a long poem.
Love it, Sayeda.
I must have been like half mental or something.
When you were reading, from the beginning to the end, I just felt there was this continuous longing and pleading, which is beautiful, because I think when you stop doing that, it's like you feel that you have arrived, and that itself is the Maya, as we say. So it was beautiful.
Where did you write it?
I wrote it in Medina.
Oh.
The red rugs, right? The red rugs is the clue. The canopies.
Oh.
Canopies.
The outside. Yeah. Yeah. So I know we've reached our sort of conclusion, and our time for this talk and for our session, and I think there's a lot of things to reflect on, and we're probably not even sure what we talked about. I just I brought some books from my bookshelf that I received as gifts from way back in the day. I received some gifts from the Royal Al Saud Library, so I just wanted to say maybe these are relevant. This one is called The Teachings of Buddha. Okay, so that's one book. I don't know who the author is, to be honest. I can share it on the group. Yeah, and then there's another one here, very interesting, Islam in Tibet. This is a Fons Vitae with a foreword from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Okay, and then this one, Deepak Chopra, Buddha. Very thematic. It's a known fact, just to make one point before we close, that the scholars of the subcontinent were unanimously of the opinion, at least the older scholars, that Buddha was a prophet, as so was Krishna, and the Upanishads were a scripture from God, like a revelation. So they considered all of these enlightened beings where the teachings are still, taught and embodied, and the traditions are still alive as messengers of God. So it's worth that we choose to, if that's something that we'd want to do, read about these about like the wisdom that has been shared with humanity. So that comes to that, and I'm not sure if Louisa's here. Okay, sure. So we'll wrap it up, and I thank everyone who has been here present, those who couldn't stay till the end, and those who are watching post, our post event. So thank you once again, and we hope to be meeting once again next month. And we're actually going to say it right now that we're looking into finding, or we've already found, we're just trying to see if we can get a beautiful coach, and she's an expert and one who lives the digital nomad life. So basically she's location and time, she's got location and time freedom in her work, so she could be like on the beach and doing her stuff, and she coaches individuals to achieve that lifestyle. Wow, it's just the most alluring thing for many of us.
Vibrations.
Yeah, I'm probably not in touch with reality, so I always want to escape, So for me, it's just like, okay, we've got to get her on, inshallah. So we're trying for that. Maybe we can have that next month, inshallah. So that's that. Thank you, everyone, and peace and blessings be upon each one of us.
Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.